Hello, and welcome to Bookish and Imbalanced, the podcast that talks about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful of mental health in the queer book community. I'm Adrienne J. Smith.
I'm Amy Spencer.
And I'm Katie Trapp.
And from authors to editors to publishers, readers, and reviewers, we have a state of mental health, and we often neglect talking about it, or worse yet, we are ashamed to talk about it. So let's break that stigma. On today's episode, we are interviewing our co-host, Katie Trapp, and she's very nervous. So, Katie, who are you?
I am a writer that lives in the States, in Kentucky, not by choice, being held hostage here until my wife retires. I have 2 rescue dogs, 2 rescue cats, and yeah, I'm doing this whole writing thing.
So why are you doing the podcast?
Why am I doing the podcast? Well, I got this cold call from this woman that I had I read a novel of, and I'd seen her name a few times, and she was just like, "Hey, your name got tossed out here, and I was wondering if you want to Zoom." And I was like, all right. So that's what we did. It was just one of those, I'll hear what she has to say and we'll go for it. And then after that, it was kind of like, my wife came home after I had met with her, and I was like, I just don't get away from mental health. It always kind of finds me. So yeah, it's as weird as it says, it's kind of like my comfort zone, and I kind of miss it. So here I am.
For those listening that don't know who slid into your DMs,
Who her was?
Who her was? Because I can see your glare.
Yes, it was just out of nowhere. I got this message, and I will be completely honest. I went ahead and read the preview of it before I opened it up to gear myself up for it, because I was like, I don't know what I'm about to open, because I like to think about it before I say things. And so I read the preview, but it didn't give me near enough. So I
it was a long message.
It was, but it didn't, I don't know, it didn't scare me off, but all right, I'm here for mental health. I can do that.
There's no way to convey the podcast in a short message. 1, 2, it wasn't a novel.
No, it wasn't. It was
like 5 or 6 paragraphs, maybe.
It was scroll worthy, but not like zoom. So,
but yeah, I realized after I sent it that we were not Facebook friends, and so I quickly hit add friend. I did the same thing to Amy too. I was like, quickly hit add friend. I was like, it's just gonna go straight into the message requests folder, and they'll never see it.
I'm on that. I could have swore we were friends because you had commented on, I did one of those little little monthly reads, and one of yours was on there. It was the one with was it the witch and the sister that would, anyways, I remember you commented, she's like, oh, hey, that's me. And that was the only interaction we had ever had.
I didn't even remember that until you pointed that out just now.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a witch's pearl.
I appreciate you remembering. I'm that rememberable.
That was a long time ago. It was months ago.
It was months ago. I did enjoy it though.
So you have touched on slightly that you can never escape mental health or the mental health world. So what are some of your struggles with mental health?
Oh,
I know.
I think it just depends on the phase of life that I'm in. Anxiety is always kind of just hanging out, just always kind of back here behind me, just ready to go. And depending on the kind of shifts I've had in my life, like big changes, depression will like sneak in and I don't even realize that it's there until months later and the cloud has lifted. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like moving from Tennessee, where I lived for over 30 years, up here where I knew no one except for my wife and like her cousin and her aunt. That was it. That was hard because I left my career, I left my family and my friends, and for like a year I just kind of went through the motions and had no idea that's what I was doing at the time. I thought I was handling it just fine, but what do I know? But the anxiety, yeah, it just always kinds of sits back there. I remember the first time I realized I was having a panic attack. I had just started my job in mental health. I was working for a nonprofit right out of college, so brand new, thought the world was just all shiny and pretty. And I had to pull over on the way home. I would go, like, my job was to go into people's houses and help improve their daily lives. And these people could have any, like, from depression to schizophrenia. It was just a broad spectrum of mental health problems. And I would do things to help improve just their functioning. And that's a lot to take on at the beginning. And then to learn, like, working at a new place, and learning to be a professional. I called it my big girl job. That was a lot to take on. And I was like, I felt like I was having a heart attack. So I pulled over and I'm sitting there thinking, I need to call 911. I think I'm dying. And like, several minutes of trying to calm myself down, it dawned on me, I had just experienced a panic attack. And I had just spent 4 years in college learning about mental health. And I think I was on like month 6 of working in it. And I felt like an idiot because I had no idea what I had just experienced. I had just experienced something that I'd talked to clients about, that I'd talked to, professionals over, these are the symptoms my client's having. And then it's like, oh, I just experienced exactly what all these other people are experiencing. And I had no clue until like the light bulb went on.
So did that give you like a better insight to your work now that you had experienced and recognized that you had experienced some of what they were experiencing?
Yeah, up until that point, because I had a professor one time tell us that the only people that go into mental health either have mental health issues themselves or they have relatives that have mental health issues. And if they don't think that those two are related, they're wrong. And I was like, well, okay. But up until that point, it was just functioning. Like I was just functional and I had no idea what was going on. And then once I got into it, I first started, it was like the most experience I had was bipolar because that's what my mother has. And it was undiagnosed not undiagnosed, it was untreated for the vast majority of my existence. That was like my comfort zone. So this whole new thing of me experiencing things myself was a new thing. Seeing the outside things, seeing the manic highs and the depressive lows, that was something that I could spot offhand, but experiencing it myself, like just the anxiety and then identifying the depression, that was like, oh, it happens to more than just my mama.
I imagine that gave you much greater insight in terms of dealing with the clients that you were dealing with.
It did that. They, on top of mental health, we would also be working on like financial things or like just functioning. Where's your food going to come from? How are we going to pay your light bill this month? you're not sleeping, but the doctor really isn't taking you seriously because he only sees you every 3 months, but I see you weekly. And so when you're already dealing with all these other factors, and then on top of that, you're seeing what the clients happen, like what happens to them just mental wise, it's a lot to take in. But after enough time, you can kind of pinpoint where it's all coming at, like what is affecting them the most at that point, and then
Well,
to be able to see it too.
yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head too, in that it's such a life rounded affectedness, right? Like, it's not just like, oh yeah, I'm depressed. It's, I'm so depressed I can't get out of bed, which means I am not eating. It means that I am either sleeping too much or not sleeping a lot. But my house is also disgusting because I literally cannot force myself to clean the dishes. And then when you do force yourself to get up to clean the dishes, to not clean the dishes but eat something, like all the dishes are dirty and you're like, oh well, I think I'll just go back to bed. And so it is kind of right, it is that whole, like, it encompasses the entire person and all of their life and everything that is affected. And I think we forget about that frequently when we're talking and dealing with mental health, for sure.
Oh, definitely. Like I would see people like just go in to see their doctor, and they'd see them every 3 months, and they explain it, and it never it never come full circle for people who didn't get to see it. I remember having to explain to a brand new doctor, just fresh out of college, that I understand that you want my client to pay for their medication, but that $3 isn't going to go towards medication when they will lose their housing if they don't pay for their lights. Because the housing has to have the lights, otherwise they get evicted. And if they get evicted, then they're not going to have anywhere to house their medication because they will be on the street. And it just could not register because she had never experienced homelessness or poverty or anything like that. She'd never experienced any kind of hardship where she had to make choices. And it took a while. Like I had to have another like a therapist come in and explain it to her, my client's therapist. It is that dire. She does not have an extra $3. She just doesn't. She had no idea. No idea.
It's interesting though, because like you were saying, like the people you were working with are in that place where their mental health is affecting their day-to-day lives so much that it's it's a struggle to get out of bed, and it's a struggle to feed yourself and dress yourself and wash yourself, and I think, like, I've certainly been at that point, but like you yourself said, that there's also that other state of mental health, which is where we're just kind of coasting, like, and I like, and you don't realize that you're in it until you're actually either at the point where you drop or you come out of the fog. Mm-hmm. And I think people kind of see it as people who haven't suffered with depression or haven't experienced it firsthand, I think of it very much as that kind of first example, and they don't appreciate that there is kind of like this really odd coasting stage where we do carry on, but we carry on and tick the bare minimum boxes just to carry on.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you find it when you were in that place?
I find, like, I find my comfort in putting off my own boxes if I can tick off other people's, if that makes sense. I am wholeheartedly codependent, wholeheartedly. And I didn't realize that until I was much older. And once I realized that I used other people to mask my symptoms, then I was able to actually find that there was things that I would ignore. There were things that I would let slide and either just kind of like pretend that wasn't what was going on, or just I don't know. I would just become blind to it, and I would do what I needed to for me, but I just did everything I could for other people, because then I could excuse it away. I can't wash all of the clothes and fold them because I had to work late helping this client. Or I've had a really long week because I've taken on all these responsibilities that I had no reason to take on. And that's why my house isn't as clean as it should be, or why I'm not sleeping as well. It's because I have all these other things I have to worry about, but I'm not addressing what I have. I'm just pushing that to the back of my mind. I'm very skilled at doing that.
So how did you find that your own experiences with mental health has carried over into what you write?
It wasn't like the first book that I wrote, I guess, is more like aligned with what I read. I don't read heavy. If I can, like, and when I say heavy, I mean like mental heavy. I don't mean like horror or something like that. I love that, but I don't read anything that is super angsty or is going to make me cry. I won't read anything that has a dog on the cover in case something happens to that dog. I kid you not. I will. If there's a pet on the front of it, I ain't reading it. It is not happening. Not at all.
Kate,
because
never
something could
watch
happen.
Marley and Me. Never
No,
watch Marley and
no,
Me.
I won't. No. I watched Bambi one time when I was a child. Never again. Ever again. You can't trust Disney. They will slip something in on you. They will just, anyone who you love, and then try to end it happy. You can't trust them. But when so that first book, it was kind of like, I'm going to write what I would want to read, which was a paranormal mystery, very light. It was well, as light as murder can get. But it was a fun book to write. There wasn't a lot of angst. There wasn't a lot of, like, you got to follow the clues, but you didn't have a lot of just the mental gymnastics sometimes we put our characters through. And I enjoyed writing that one. It wasn't until I started writing the last series, or the only series, that I started adding in the anxiety and the not necessarily depression. In this last one, I added like a domestic abuse to it, and that hit home. So
why did you make that switch then?
I was ready. The first one was kind of like a tester. I didn't even have a sex scene in it because I could not bring myself to do it. It's sweet level. I could not bring myself to do it. I was not confident enough. So I followed up with like this little spicy novelette, because after I published, I was like, okay, I can do that. I can do that. And like, I guess I just needed to have something under my belt first, be like, okay, I can put words onto paper and we can print it out and people have enjoyed it. So maybe we can step out of our comfort zone a little bit. And that's what I did with my second book. It was just a little bit, I don't know. I guess I got confident. I don't have a mom character yet in any of my books because I struggle with my relationship with my mother. I don't have a mom, like, so far they've all been dead for my characters, because I'm not putting that in there. I don't know why. It's just been hard for me to fathom a I don't want to say healthy relationship, but it's just not something that I am personally comfortable with. So my characters haven't had a mom. Like my secondary characters, they've had moms, but none of them it's all been raised by grandparents, because that was the only stability I had was grandparents.
It's curious that you say that, because I was thinking back to all of my characters and none of them have really strong father figures that I can recall off the top of my head. And yeah, I mean, part of it that I feel, and maybe you feel this way too, is just writing. When you're writing, there's, as much as we say there isn't, we are not the characters. there is a lot of ourselves in the characters and in the story itself. And to imagine a healthy relationship that is central to the plot like that, I think would tax my mental health in order to write that.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those, either we're going to spend an awful lot of time putting this one person in here that's not even going to be a main character, or we move on and just pretend they've died in some accident. At some point, maybe I'll pop a mom in there, but not yet. Not yet.
Co-writing with,
I mean, it's just easier to kill them off. It's just,
yeah.
So you kind of touched on it, but not really. Which of the books, and you have 3 out now, right?
I do.
Today, right?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
The third one dropped yesterday.
For those of you seeing this not in real time, that would have been October 30th.
So Sully realised that everyone's going to go like in January to go, Katie Trapp's got a new book out, and they'll go, oh, I had that 3 months ago.
Yeah.
That
Anyway,
liar.
We record these way in advance. But so you have 3 books now. Of those 3 books, and I can assume it wasn't the first one, which one made you struggle the most with your mental health?
Oh gosh, it'd be the third one. It would be Redemption, the one that just come out yesterday. No, not last night, but yesterday. Redemption is, oh God. It's like all the characters from the book prior, the first book. It's in 2 parts. The first book, they went through a lot of trauma. Man, did I put them through the ringer. And instead of just ending it with a happy ending, I decided to go a little further because nothing was working. Everything I did just sounded forced or lame. Like it just was not working. I rewrote it like 5 times. And finally I was like sitting at the pizza place here in town. They've got a great salad bar. And I looked at my wife and I was like, I'm not going to end it. I'm just going to do a second book. Like mid garlic stick, it hits me. Oh, that works a lot better. So that gave me an entire book for my characters to be able to process the trauma that they had went through. And then I added in a couple of other people because, you know, the more the merrier, and they helped move the whole thing along. So we're dealing with anxiety and depression, and there's some PTSD in there because one of my characters was kidnapped, and it's just this whole thing. But I added in the domestic violence because I've experienced that. And there was something about the character that just sort of, I didn't know why she was coming into town, but as I was writing it, I realized why she was coming into town. And that was because she was running from an abusive partner. And she comes into Copper Hollow just this shell of a human being. And by the end of the book, she has this, she's been able to find her confidence again. And it's really difficult for, I know a lot of people don't really get the whole domestic violence thing, but the more that a person chips and chips and chips away at you, the smaller and smaller and smaller you get, and your confidence level and your self-esteem and just being a human being, you're not anymore. So I took what I had experienced in the past, and wrote it into my character, and I had no intentions of doing it. It just happened. Like every day my wife would come home and I'd be like, this is what she did today. I didn't know we were taking this turn. And I know that sounds weird because it's like you control the characters. You don't. You don't in some instances. It just come out. So that was hard because sometimes it was like just having to describe how not being told what you could wear. Like I was never told I couldn't wear certain things, but my life was made an absolute nightmare if I didn't. Like if I wore something I wasn't supposed to wear, my life would become hard. So I learned quickly, without really learning, that if I did what kept the arguments and the stuff like that, what kept that at bay, then that's how I would go. I was being trained, and I had no idea I was being trained. No idea. I'm working with people who have had the exact same things, if not 10 times worse, and it never hit me. Oh, Katie, you're experiencing the exact same things that, Susie Q is doing. But looking back, that's what happened. So just writing that in there was just this huge thing. I was finally able to put it down on all like on paper, but if it had just happened, there's no way I could have done that.
Was it relieving after the fact?
Oh
Now that
yeah,
the book is out too. I mean,
it was, because the abuser, the abuser definitely got her own. She was definitely served her.
Muppets.
Oh yeah, so I enjoyed that so much. I was laughing the whole time I was writing it, because I'm just like, yes, here we go. Like this should happen to all of them. All the abusers, not like characters. But yeah, I enjoyed that, because afterwards, after I let it sit for a while and went back to it, it's like, man, that there's some processing going on right there. That is some self-reflection that I'm completely blind to, because that's just what I do. And it felt so good. It felt so good. The next one I don't think is going to have that though, so we don't got to worry about that.
Did you find writing that storyline, like those characters, did you find yourself like writing something and writing it thinking it's just a fictional take on, whatever I'm drawing from, and then reading it back and thinking, actually, no, I think I probably experienced that more than I really realized at the time? Like, was it still like a revealing process for you?
Yeah,
Or do you think you'd
there's something about, like, because it comes back to you, because you can just push it all to the back of your mind, and like as you're writing it, things come out that you've forgotten. Like I didn't remember some of the things. Like I was trying to write down all of the stuff that were clues that I should have picked, like the red flags I should have picked up on. I didn't realize I had actually broken up with this partner a few months into the relationship, because I had picked up on, I don't like the way this person is talking to me. But then I went in, a person who I thought was their best friend talked to me and essentially talked me back into it. And I had forgotten that to get back into the relationship with this person. I had completely forgot about it. And then as I was rereading it, because I made my character do the exact same thing, I was like, oh, this sounds familiar. And then it hit me. I was, oh, I didn't really, because I had forgotten all about that. This I would have been, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, maybe. It's hard to remember, because I kind of like blocked it out a little bit. So I don't know how long ago was, like 2014,
almost 10 years ago.
almost 10 years. So that would have been the beginning of the relationship, and we were together for 4 years. I realized at year 3 that I fully understood what the relationship was, but it took a year to get out. But it never even realized until after I had written it.
Okay, so we've got some rapid fire questions for you now, Katie.
Okay.
First thing that comes, but not necessarily the first thing that comes to your mind. The first answer to the question which comes to your mind. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
So what's your favorite source of caffeine?
Coffee.
How do you take it?
Oh, okay, it's very specific. I make it in an electric. You knew it was. Like you just
had
knew.
to ask the question.
You make it in an electric percolator. All right, electric percolator. Then you fill the cup up that much with coffee. And then you do a spoon, not like a spoon because that's too sweet, but you do like a spoon of sugar and then a splash of milk. And then, of course, stir.
Okay, just a one-word answer for the next one. What's your dream destination vacation?
I've wanted to go to the UK and I would love to go back to Mexico.
Where did you see kindness today?
Where did I see? Oh, I woke up to a message on Facebook where a friend that I had in high school congratulated me on like making it a year as an author. And I thought it was so sweet that she took time out of her day because I don't think I've seen her in 10 years.
What's your philosophy on good mental health?
I think the good days should outweigh the bad. You should have more than the good, and then you're doing good. Because we all have bad days. We all have mental health struggles. But if we can get to where the good ones outweigh the bad ones, then we're doing all right.
And last, where did you find joy this week?
Oh, probably when I went grocery shopping this weekend, I was like at the meat counter and I was trying to I have horrible eyesight. So I was like looking to see what the little prices were on the tags to see, price per pound. And I heard this cute little voice behind me from the buggy that was behind me, or cart, if that's what you call it. And this little girl was like, I love your shirt. It's so cute. Because it's like a rescue dog shirt, because, lesbian rescue dog. And I was like, oh, thank you. And it was so sweet of her because she just out of nowhere, this tiny little blonde head was like, I love your shirt. But then I went to put like the little pork shoulder back onto the counter and it rolled off and ran smack into the mom's cart and completely moved it. It was a good encounter though. It brought me joy, okay? It was a nice interaction.
Well, on that story, that's all for our latest episode of Bookish and Unbalanced. Adrian and I would love to thank Katie for sharing with us today. We also want to thank our listeners for tuning in and getting to know 1/3 of our host trio. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons to keep up to date on all our latest episodes. And until next time, take care out there. And remember, we're all in this together. Like one of these days we'll get that down, and until then
I just came right back on play.
people.
Yes.